The 2025 NFL Draft is officially in the books, and we now have the full collection of players that will be joining this Lions roster as they continue to build towards, hopefully, a championship. We've done a lot of work over the past month looking in the past, but now we finally get to look back at the present again. If you've been subscribed to my channel, then you might have seen I've already posted reactions to the day 1 and day 2 picks, but those were more instant reactions, and this was actually supposed to be an instant reaction to the day 3 picks, but I figured that I would just take a little bit of extra time, take the extra night, and work on a more in-depth video, not necessarily in-depth because I'm not a draft guru, but I at least can recap the entire draft class the same way we did the previous draft classes when we were looking back, so that this can serve sort of as a beginner's guide to the Lions 2025 draft class. So if you missed anything this weekend, or you want a basic understanding of each prospect, or you just want a Lions fan's perspective on everything, this video is for you. So please make sure to hit that like button down below and subscribe to the channel when notifications turned on. It's a very small channel, so if you could take 5 seconds to do those 3 things, it would really help the channel grow. And without further ado, let's get into it. Round 1, pick 28, Tyleik Williams. The Lions decided to stick and pick at 28, which is a bit of a rarity for them, considering over the previous 4 drafts that Brad Holmes has been part of, the Lions had traded either up or down within the first round exclusively 3 times already. But instead, they opt to go not necessarily off the board, more so just adjacent to what people were hoping for. And I was one of them. I wanted a pass rusher at the top of this draft. I wanted either an edge rusher or an interior defensive lineman that was known more for the pass rushing chops. Trade up for a Derek Harmon, for example, that I yelled at the Steelers for taking from me. But instead, the Lions go for another interior defensive lineman, just one that is more of a run stopper than pass rusher. Now, Tyleik is mostly a nose tackle. He does have some versatility on the inside. He can play up to the 3 technique, and I imagine he will. Just kind of depends where the Lions want his weight to be, because he is built like a nose tackle right now. But this pick serves 2 purposes. Number 1, this is a long-term replacement for DJ Reader, who has 1 year left on his contract. Number 2, this is just getting another run stopper because the Lions want to get back to being an elite run defense. And for that reason, this pick actually does make a lot of sense, because this is one of the Lions' core principles defensively. Instead of focusing on every time you get in a 3rd and 8, we want to make sure that we get to the quarterback. They want to make sure that you have as many 3rd and 8s as possible instead of 3rd and 5s. If you can keep opposing running backs under 4 yards a carry, that's what the Lions are going for here. I know the Lions have talked about like Brad Holmes mentioned, they see Tyleik as another Aleem McNeil. If that happens, oh my lord, that would be fantastic. I'm not necessarily expecting that, though. I don't think I'm going into this knowing he's a good run defender, could be a great run defender, and I'm hoping that he's at least kind of like DJ Reader, just taking up blocks in pass rushing situations so that Aiden Hutchinson can get one-on-one reps more often. My current position on this pick is I'm not necessarily happy, I'm content. But that doesn't mean I'm mad either. I'm just cool. I'm cool with it. Round 2, pick 57, Tate Rutledge. We sort of had an idea that the Lions were going to address offensive line in this draft, specifically the interior of the offensive line, following how inactive they were at the position in free agency. They elect to let Kevin Zeitler walk after a good season, and they don't really bring in any other options. Now, as you guys may know, I've been sitting here saying I'm comfortable with Christian Mahogany being the starting guard. Now it's going to be a competition, because the Lions spend a round 2 pick on Tate Rutledge, who is one of the better guards in this class, and that will be that is the most clear competition. It'll probably be one of the most talked about competitions in training camp, is who is going to start at guard. But you also have Graham Glasgow, who is getting up there in age, so this was to fill both a short and long-term need. But don't just take my word for it, let's take the Lions' word for it. This from Colton Pouncey. Brad Holmes on the offensive line earlier this offseason. That's the engine for us. I don't care how good we ever get on the offensive line. That one right there is too important. It's our identity, man. I think just that alone, it's always going to be at the forefront. So the Lions get one of the meaner offensive linemen in this draft, a self-proclaimed dirtbag, and he will, yeah, like I said, compete for a starting job right away. Similar to the Tyleik Williams pick, this is a high floor pick with some untapped upside, and I mean, there's just going to be an open competition. So I fully expect Rutledge to probably be one of the starters right now. Probably, I don't know. We'll have to wait and see, but he will start for the Lions within the next 2 seasons, I would imagine. So I mean, they're keeping the offensive line elite. I don't think there's any way you can object to this kind of pick. The Lions want the offensive line to be their identity for a long time, so you have to keep investing in it. Just because it's a strength now doesn't mean it'll be a strength in the future unless you keep investing. So you can't be mad at this pick. Round 3, pick 70, Isaac TeSlaa. Okay, yeah, no, this is the one where people were getting mad, and for a much more understandable reason. Because this pick is bigger than the player, but let's start with the player. So Isaac TeSlaa, he is a huge 6'3" or 6'4", depending on which website you look at for measurables, wide receiver that runs in the low 4.4s, and he profiles as the long-term X receiver that the Lions have been coveting. His physical traits are fantastic, and it's not hard to see the potential with this pick. But he's not there yet. Actually, he has a good amount of work to do in terms of his polish as a wide receiver. He needs to do better at creating separation. He needs to really do better at beating press. Funny enough, he wasn't even an X receiver in college. He played a lot of slot, like he was a big slot in college. So that's the big thing, is you have to actually train him in the proper like techniques to be an effective X receiver. But that being said, the Lions have one for this season. They have Tim Patrick, so TeSlaa does not need to be a starter right away. And in theory, if you give him a year to kind of cook as the 4th receiver on this team, then in 2026, he should be your starter. So why are people mad? Because of the trade up. I didn't mention it earlier. The Lions did move up 3 spots for Tate Rutledge last round. That's a minor trade up. Nothing really to talk about there. This was a lot bigger of a move in terms of just how many picks they moved up, because the Lions moved up 32 picks in the 3rd round, which is, there's 32 teams there. That is a full round basically of a trade up, and they gave up a lot to do it. The Lions gave up not just the 102nd overall pick, they give up their 3rd round next year, and actually both 3rd rounds. Their other 3rd rounder too. Yeah, we don't need to beat around the bush. They trade 3 3rd round picks to move up 32 spots. Now, if I'm trying to understand this from the Lions' perspective, they view the compensatory picks that they got both this year and next year, that was the 102nd pick and the one of the 3rd rounders next year, for Aaron Glenn being hired as a minority coach. So the Lions are viewing that as found money. Essentially, like, hey, we planned not to have these picks, but now we get them. So it's free money. So if you gave Brad Holmes truth serum, I bet you the answer he would give is something along the lines of, we didn't expect to have these picks anyways, so we basically just traded up for free. That's probably how he would look at it. I don't agree. It's just, yeah, I don't know, man. It's a tough pill to swallow, because I was already upset last year that they used a future 3rd round pick to trade up for another 4th rounder. It's tough. Now, there were actually some charts that suggested that this trade was even, relatively even in terms of the value given up. The Lions also picked up some late round picks, some day 3 picks in this as well. I get it, because those charts, the algorithms, they detect future picks not as valuable as current picks, which they aren't, right? Futures can't help you now, current picks can, and this is a team that's in a Super Bowl window, so you need picks that can help you now. That being said, because it's a championship caliber team, it's a team that's trying to stay competitive for a long time, you're going to need top 100 picks, or top 105 picks, whatever, however long the 3rd round is every year with compensatory picks. You need those picks to fill out future starters for when guys do eventually walk and you can't afford to keep everyone. So it's a tough pill to swallow. But as for TeSlaa himself, I like it. It's a long-term X receiver. He just needs some time to develop, and the Lions can afford him that time. So I like it. Just don't love the trade up. Round 5, pick 171, Miles Frazier. The Lions double up at guard in this draft, and they kind of go different direction to an extent because whereas Rutledge is maybe more of a run blocker, maybe a more complete prospect in general, Frazier is a pure pass protecting guard. That's what he profiles as right now, and the Lions will work to round out the rest of his game. And to prove this, I have a fun stat for you. So, Miles Frazier on 188 true drop back passes, that doesn't include like RPOs, screens, that sort of thing, just true drop back passes, led college linemen because in college, you don't see teams do that many true drop back scenarios, right? They do a lot of options and screens and all that. But Frazier this past season, 188 true drop back passes, 0 quarterback hits allowed, and just 5 total pressures. That stat coming from Brett Coleman on YouTube. Fantastic. That is a fantastic pass protecting guard. Like I said, got to round out the rest of the skill set, but for that to be one of your backups, you gotta love it. I said it with the Rutledge pick. The Lions were reinvesting in the offensive line because they want to make sure that that remains a strength of their team. I was concerned about the depth at this position, and now 2 of Christian Mahogany, Tate Rutledge, and Miles Frazier are going to be your primary backups, which means you can train those guys to play one position probably. They'll probably cross-train them, but you could have Mahogany be the primary backup right guard or Rutledge be the primary backup right guard, and then Frazier is maybe just a left guard. I still imagine that they'll have to be able to play both positions, maybe even some center, but I really like what the Lions added on offensive line and the depth they added at guard. It just makes the unit that much deeper so that injuries on the interior are not a backbreaker really at all. Same thing as the Rutledge pick. I don't know how you can be mad at this one. Round 6, pick 196, Ahmed Hassanin. First of all, I really hope I'm pronouncing that name right. If I'm not, I'm sorry. I'll learn it by the time training camp comes up and I have to pronounce it again. So the Lions finally get their edge rusher. This is a position that people are getting antsy. You know, if we harken back to 2021, it's the same as wide receiver. The Lions need a wide receiver. Why aren't you getting a wide receiver? And then they draft Amon-Ra and it all works out. The Lions, they get an edge rusher. I'm not saying he's going to be an all-pro like Amon-Ra, but they get one that they like. And it's actually a really cool story. Ahmed, I'm sorry, I don't want to butcher the last name. Ahmed is the first Egyptian player ever taken in the NFL draft. He was also the first Egyptian player to play in FBS. So this kid has been overcoming the odds for a long time. He actually was a wrestler back in the that's what his first sport was. That's where his base comes from, and supposedly he plays like it. There was a funny clip or interview quote that came up that a few years ago, it was one of his first years in the United States, and he saw a clip of Aaron Donald. It was like some sort of pass rush rep, and he asked his teammate what high school he went to because he hadn't heard of the NFL yet. But Ahmed has been a workhorse for Boise State, over 9.5 sacks each of the last 2 seasons. Not necessarily a great athlete, but he has a motor that is unmatched by anyone, maybe even in the Lions organization still. Like, this is the most prototypical Dan Campbell pick that has ever been a Dan Campbell type of pick. Like, the Lions, if you were to describe what they're looking for, like, okay, team captain, right? Okay, yeah, he's a team captain, multi-year team captain. He has an unmatched motor. He is relentless. Yeah, that's exactly what you want. That's exactly what the Lions want. And in terms of culture fit, you can't get it any better than this. You are going to get whatever the best he can give you, you're going to get. Whether or not that's an effective NFL player remains to be seen, but considering he's still relatively new to football, there is a lot of upside here. And in case you wanted any more reason to like him, this was his quote from his introductory press conference with the Lions media. "I'm ready to die on the football field for those who believe in me." This dude rocks. Round 7, pick 230, Dan Jackson. The Lions went back to the Georgia well here in the 7th round, actually twice. They went there 3 times in this draft total. They get Jackson, who is a backup safety. He's not going to be a starting level safety. In fact, he might not even be a top 3 safety on this roster come training camp at all. He's a special teamer. That's what the Lions got him for. He's a bit older, he's 24 years old, but he is a pure special teamer. He does 2 things. He runs relatively fast and he hits really hard. Like, this is a gunner. This is a gunner if I've ever seen one. We talked about how important the other traits are for the Lions, but he is quoted as being a phenomenal teammate. He was at Georgia for 6 years. Like, he's been around the block as much as you possibly can in college. Already 24 years old, yeah, but it's not like the Lions are counting on him to be like this tremendous upside pick. He's here for special teams, and if he has to start on defense, then a few guys have gotten hurt. 7th round dart throw, sure, shore up special teams. I don't know, why not? Last but not least, round 7, pick 244, Dominic Lovett. Again, going back to the Georgia well, the Lions, channeling their inner Philadelphia Eagles in a way, just loving that program. They get another wide receiver in this draft, bit of a smaller guy. I think he's around 5'10". And this is, we talked about how TeSlaa was the long-term Tim Patrick replacement. Lovett could possibly be a long-term Khalif Raymond replacement. Again, there's not a ton to say on this. Like, by all accounts, he's a pretty fluid receiver, and we'll see what he brings. He'll fight to stay on the roster. This could be a year where the Lions bring 6 receivers out of training camp, I would imagine, and Lovett will compete with the guys like Antoine Green for a roster spot come training camp. So that's it. That is the 2025 draft class fully reviewed and recapped. I hope that if you didn't know anything about this draft class, you maybe learned something. Or again, if you're just here to see what a Lions fan has to say, I'm sorry to disappoint, but there's not a ton of reaction to have. This is a very meat and potatoes type of draft. And the Lions did a very good job at just hitting all of the needs. Like, let's review the needs from this class. Edge was the big one. Well, you got one. Maybe later than most people wanted, but you got one. Interior defensive line, you got one. Safety, you got one. Interior offensive line, you got 2. Wide receiver, you got 2. So the Lions checked all of the boxes that they needed to in this draft. People will still get mad because that's what people do, but at the end of the day, I don't know what else you could actually realistically ask for from Detroit. But that's going to be it for this video. Make sure to leave a like on the video if you enjoyed it, subscribe if you loved it, and also comment down below your thoughts on this draft class. I would love to hear from you guys. But yeah, that's it for this one. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you guys next time. Cheers.